reader, Billy Yarrow.
Hi, thank you for coming. Hi everybody, thank you. This is called The Whole Debt. Just as I was launching my life, extending the web of my friendships, adding magicians, librarians, architects, horticulturalists, house lawyers, horse lawyers, CIOs, videographers, EFL flagellants, instructional diviners, just when the langoustines had me by the throat, when the side exits were all blocked, when the nacreous clouds began to move in, when the power grid was on the verge of extinction, when the atrial gas main had not yet ruptured, when the Mad River was rising, when the edges of my palms were just beginning to itch, just when the air was loud with the sound of invisible mockery, when the world paralyzed littleness was becoming dull, when all the birds headed for the bourbon in the corn, when cheers of ill will resounded from the abandoned sawmill, when craven acolytes were craving ions, just when the sky was dark with birds, the ground black with snakes, the river choked with otters, the mesa teeming with beetles, the mountains pocked with bees, my step-parents slammed the door of the oven of the souffle of death, and the feisty yeast of conjured life began to rise. That poem and the poems I'm going to read tonight are from my new manuscript called The Broken Net, the title of which will be clear at the end of this poem. This is called Language Out of Water, and I want to thank Bill Lantry and Kate Lantry for publishing this poem in Peacock Journal, a beautiful venue which, if you haven't appeared there or submitted, I encourage you to submit. Language out of water. All of speech is just like life, maddening in its small colors and declivities of spirit and beauty. What we need is less hysteria, less flap. Words are words. They come out unannounced. A slim process, hardly mysterious. Even our teeth understand how we speak, but not when we speak in torsion, tongues, or brute translation. The problem's feeling, its misery and muteness, not to mention knowledge, hot, wild, which sayings help us to abet. Talking's a kind of common sense angling. Language the fish, truth the broken net. This poem is called Neural Tone. A rose is a rose is a rose, wrote Gertrude Stein. I prefer Wanda LaFran's version. A rose is a rose is a rose. She said, sitting next to me in the dark patisserie, where we were listening to a torch singer light the gloom of our recent divorces. My divorce was 2 months older than hers, but we were both still in the infancy of our dissolutions. The infected flecks of sour love still visible on both of our chins. Who's your favorite poet? I asked her during the lull. I'm into the vegan poet, Tofu. What about you? I'm heavily invested in the Wall Street poet, Dow Jones. She tries to smile. What do you most regret? Regret? About horror? Not being kind to her, I guess. She quotes Dr. Johnson to me. Kindness is in our power. Fondness is not. That pretty much sums it up, I moan. Then she puts her hidden arms around me. It would have been rude not to reciprocate. Look at us, she murmurs. Tristan and Isolde, without the adultery. Well, you can't have everything, I offer. No, I heard otherwise. Then Frozen Dawn waltzed into the bakery, and against all good sense, I arose and arose and arose. This is called Body Parts. They were playing chess with body parts of children they had sacrificed to God. The battalions of pawns were tiny teeth. The darting rooks were eyes. The frosty nights were hollow cheeks. The blushing bishops were ears. The queen was a nose. The king was a tongue. Upright but unsteady, like a vertical snake. Antoine was red, his soldiers bristling and bloody. Emily had black, her men dark with decay. Antoine went first and moved the tooth in front of his tongue, one space forward. Emily moved the same tooth forward 2 squares. Antoine took out his nose's cheek. Emily nudged her tooth further forward. Antoine matched her by moving out his other cheek. Emily considered his move and put her hand on her ear. I didn't understand Emily's strategy, but maybe that's what made her moves, unconventional to my mind, superior to Antoine's. Antoine attempted the moves leading to Blake's fool's mate, but as he went through those tired motions, Emily had moved out all of her black teeth, forming a moat of absence between her front and rear lines, her nose proudly exposed. Then Antoine played the irresistible tongue. Emily countered with the insatiable eye. It was as if they were playing 2 different games, or playing 2 different kinds of chess. One landed, one lunar. I gave up my space in the front row and pushed out through the thronging crowd, which howled or moaned at each succeeding move. The hall was air-conditioned, and as I was cold, this spurred the urge to empty my bladder. "Who's ahead in points?" I asked the bearded man in the Euro next to mine. "No pieces have been yet exchanged," he said, zombie-like, staring straight in front of him. I zipped up my business and washed my hands. I would have liked to have stayed, but having given up my seat and realizing there's no viable way back into the hall, I left with a resignation married to regret. I read in the next day's paper that patriarchy, though threatened, had prevailed. Antoine had won, but so shaken had he been when playing Emily, he resigned the championship and ceded it to her. She thanked him, but declined it herself. She refused to win the crown by forfeit and was applauded in the press for her integrity. "Self-righteous," cried her fans. "Self-righteous," cried her foes. I was undecided. I could see both sides of the equation, as I could see both sides of the game, its divergent opponents and contradictory styles. Ultimately, it made no difference. The government stepped in and, citing sanitation and health concerns, banned all games played with body parts. Funny or serious?
Funny. Funny, yeah.
This is a poem entitled "Titles for Poems I Will Probably Never Write." Open heart crane surgery. The doctor will never see you now. The Jesus gene. Mercury in Uranus. You merit Oppenheimer. Secret aging man. Stay where you aren't. Rendition at 11. You're nobody until you're somebody, and then you're still nobody. Avenue Fashions, Street Road. Emotion Motors. Change of Pharaoh. The synchronous appetite. Mermaid no more. It's never too late to reinvent the past. Be absolute for vodka. Get help or get out. Tar around the heart. Honeymoon in Dhaka. When will the ion lie down with the I am? Holy chow. My safe word is menopause. Don't stint your future for a dog. Self-portrait with butter knife. R. Kelly recapitulates Phil Everly. That's a philosopher's dream. Prisoner of today's agenda. Song in the key of G string. Imagination is mostly addition. Tiresias wants bigger tits. Sentient, senile, dead. This poem was called Auden at Swarthmore. I was first in line that Sunday, but it wasn't like I hadn't heard other poets read there. I had Rexroth, Berrigan, Paget, Strand, Sidney Goldfarb, Gene Valentine, Daniel Hoffman, Galway Cannell. They were known or emerging, but not outlandishly famous, not like W.H. Auden. So I went to see the wrinkled and rumpled poet who insisted on reading from memory, stumbling through a sheaf of poems. Someone in the audience should have heckled him, but everyone was in awe of his assembled glory. When I saw him, I was barely 20, and he was solidly 64, years younger than I am now. 2 years later, he died in Vienna. That winter, I returned to Philly to see the exiled Joseph Brodsky read at the Broad Street Y. He read his elegy to Auden, declaiming, "Poetry without you equals only us." "More blood, more adrenaline, you parasite," a drunk poet in the audience cried. As they dragged him out, yelling like jealousy, the future Nobel laureate bowed his head. And I'm very pleased to say that this next poem has been accepted by Fulcrum, which is re-emerging in April or May, according to Mark, and I'm really happy about the reappearance of that journal. This is called Ways of Seeing Karachi. I've become interested in Karachi, Ludovico Karachi, Bolognese contemporary of Shakespeare, early Baroque artist, cousin of Agostino and Annibale, whose 1612 painting, Body of St. Sebastian, thrown into the Cloaca Maxima, is a masterpiece of the frozen moment. Sebastian is limp in a sheet, supported by muscular soldiers. His hands hang down, his eyes are shut. Is he asleep? More likely unconscious. After all, he's about to be thrown into the great sewer of Rome. Unless one rotates the image, then he becomes beautifully vertical, his dreaming body like a sleeping bird, floating in warm, soft air. Then the closed fists and flexed forearms of the executioners are seen impotently attempting to hold him down, but nothing human can prevent his rise. And I'm going to finish with an atypical political poem. Atypical for me in that I never write political poems, but somehow I did. This is called We All Saw It Coming. We all saw it coming. The snakes in ascendance, the dark satanic milling around, the troops of the nouveau greedy, the safety nets on fire, the cesspool of superiority flooding the brazen stage. We all saw it coming, the Pete Moss racists, the neonatal Nazis, King Lear, Queen Gertrude, the bully trident planted, the ratcheting down of sense. We all saw it coming, the tide of crude insurgents, complacency swept away, virtue's camel toe exposed, the nipple slip of decency, the fondling of the tit of turpitude, the gangbang of the plebiscite. We all saw it coming. I don't mean we. I don't mean we all saw it coming. I mean I. I saw it coming and did nothing. Thank you very much.